Hello, welcome to Workplace Wake Up. I'm Jen Shaw. Every week, I spend about 15 minutes covering key legal developments, introducing you to interesting guests, and providing some entertainment to start your workday. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here with us today, the first week of September. And I am honored and privileged to have my colleague, Brooke Kozak, with me today. Good morning, Brooke. How are you?
Good morning, Jen. I'm great. How are you today?
I am well. Brooke and I have been talking about social media and the impact of social media, obviously, on lots of things in society. And for the purpose of our podcast, we're going to talk about its impact with respect to the workplace. So, Brooke, one of the things that I think is really interesting about TikTok is people are expressing concerns, perspectives, all sorts of things on TikTok. And they've actually started, which I guess makes a lot of sense, venting their workplace gripes, right? This is a place where workers are saying, okay, this is what I'm upset about. And they have a new language. Like, what is going on here?
Well, it's interesting in the podcast last week on DEI hires, one of the things you talked about is how important it is to take a step back and look at what's going on out there in society, look at what's on TikTok and Facebook and the evening news, and make sure you're filtering that for the workplace. And so I started tuning into some of these TikTok trends a while ago, just because, in the investigations world, that I usually move in those circles, we're busier than ever. Like, we are so busy with investigations. And so I started tuning into these trends, and people, particularly younger workers on TikTok, have developed this sort of viral language, these playful terms that are playfully, typically reflecting rebellion or resentment. And honestly, it makes me worry about just the state of employee relations today.
Well, and that's interesting, Brooke, because as many of you know, Brooke has a really strong history in employee relations and HR. It's what makes her such a great lawyer for our firm. And I know what you're saying. I've been worried about it too. And I have to say, some of these terms, I don't even understand. Like, what is everybody so upset about? What's going on? The pandemic is essentially over. Not really, obviously. It's still there and people are still getting sick, but we've at least got some solutions. What is bugging everybody right now?
So what I'm seeing on TikTok are trends that are really reflecting dissatisfaction in three areas. The first one is, and this is a post-pandemic issue, is work from home versus return to work issues. The second one is dissatisfaction with some newer staffing and recruiting practices. And then the third, and honestly, these are kind of, the first two are subsets of this third one, but the third is really what this all boils down to. Workers are just demanding more work-life balance today.
Work-life balance, that term cracks me up because
I know it's your favorite.
Right. What does it even mean, work-life balance? Work-life integration, I guess, is what we're all aiming for. But look, the bottom line is, in this firm, we try very hard to make sure that people can do what they want to do in their lives and also do what the firm needs them to do and what our clients need. So there is always this balancing or integrating that we're trying to do. All right. Well, let's talk about work from home, because as you know, being part of our recruiting team here at the firm, lots of people come to us, even newer lawyers or newer staff folks who say, I want to work at home. And of course, my bias. How are you going to learn if you start out working at home? Maybe if you've done it for a while, sure, you can work remotely. And lots of us have hybrid schedules. But what is going on with this work from home, return to work issue?
So a trend that has been really, I guess, gaining popularity particularly in 2024, but it started last year, is the phrase is coffee badging. So these are hybrid workers. They're working, they have in-office days and work from home days, and they're coming in, long enough on their in-office days just to swipe their badge and get a cup of coffee. They're making an appearance. And then they're going to go home and work from home for the rest of the day on what's supposed to be their in-office day. And I will tell you that there's a company called Owl Labs. They make video conferencing equipment. They did a study last year, and according to their study, 58% of hybrid workers are doing this.
So if you think your hybrid workers are actually going to be working in office on their in-office day, you got another thing coming.
They're coffee badging.
Oh, I love that. I love that term.
Subtly protesting these return to office mandates. And, again, when looking at this from the employee relations perspective, I also have to wonder, is this reflecting dissatisfaction with the workplace culture? Or is this just more people are wanting ways to, reduce distraction too? It could be on you're out working from home days. There's another trend there on TikTok. It's called monk mode. I didn't know there was a name for this. I do this. Monk mode is when you are blocking time on your calendar, removing all the digital distractions so you can focus on a single task. So I know on my work from home days, I didn't realize I'm going into monk mode. I literally will block my calendar. No meetings, no interviews. I turn off the email so I don't have that distraction of the emails coming in. And I'm focused on something. And of course, I won't do this for more than, maybe half a day, but because I can't just ignore the emails forever. But, that's one of the things that, I like about working from home. And so, I don't know if it's people just coffee badging because they prefer working from home for those kind of reasons, or if they're just not wanting to be in the office because of the culture.
I love monk mode. I love that. That's how I feel on weekends when I'm in the office and nobody else is here. And I'm happy nobody else is here because it's quiet and I'm just going through all the stuff I need to go through and the phone's not ringing. So I love that idea. Well, and of course, the culture is important. And we've talked a lot on this podcast over the years, Brooke, about the importance of workplace culture and creating an environment where people feel valued and they feel like they can be successful. And it's hard. And I know, personally, I struggle with what can I do to make people want to be in the office more? What can I do when we're hiring, as we are now, trying to find lawyers? How can I convince people that it's a good place to work and that they'll get, job satisfaction and personal satisfaction? It's hard. You can't just wave a magic wand and have a positive culture. It's really tough.
I totally agree. And I will also say, that kind of moves me into the next section of these trends, where there are some things that employers are doing that are in these staffing recruiting practices, but I think are actually making it harder for you to develop that culture. These are certainly not practices that are lending themselves to a positive culture where employees feel valued. And so the first one is a trend on TikTok that's called dry promotions. And so this is giving an employee a promotion. Congratulations, we've promoted you. We're going to change your title. And maybe you're going to get more work, more responsibility, but there is no accompanying salary increase.
Oh, that's not fair.
So, on the bright side, yes, they're recognizing good performance. There is a commitment to the employee's growth, but an employee is not going to feel valued when they're being given more to do, more responsibility without their pay reflecting the new responsibility. And so I'm hoping employers who are doing this dry promotions practice can maybe come up with some other ideas. If you can't increase the employee's salary, can you maybe give them some more vacation or, are there other options you can do to help make them feel compensated in some way for the additional responsibility?
That's an interesting one too, because I immediately came up with that's not fair because it just doesn't seem fair. I do understand. When you have work that needs to be done, work has to be done. And I guess there's an argument for, well, I gave you a better title. So now when you go out and look for another job and you leave me, you're going to be able to get a better job. But that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What's this quiet hiring? I've heard of that. Quietly quitting we've talked about, but What is quietly hiring?
Yeah, so quiet hiring is another one of these sort of staffing practices where now people aren't even getting a promotion. They're just getting the new responsibility. These are employers who are filling needs or filling gaps without actually hiring new employees. They're just asking their existing employees to do more, again, without an accompanying salary increase.
And, I guess that's an interesting one too, because we all know, work comes in, you figure it out, you balance it, you try to be fair, you try to make sure everybody has what they need. But if you literally have a new position and you think, well, rather than hiring for that new position, I'll just add these duties to Brooke's list of things to do. Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I think that's a problem. What's a ghost job?
So yeah, this is another recruiting practice that's getting a lot of attention on TikTok. Ghost jobs. These are employers that are posting jobs with absolutely no intention of actually filling the position. So they're either, they're maybe building a pipeline. In some cases, they're just trying to keep their current employees in line. Making employees
make them nervous that they're going to
Right.
recruit somebody better to come in. Oh my gosh, I hadn't
Absolutely.
heard of
So
that.
I don't understand that at all. That does not compute for me, but it is happening. It is a trend out there, and it's very frustrating for job seekers who are taking the time to apply to your company, and you're making people feel like these jobs are out there and they're not.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, let's talk about this work-life integration. It sounds like really some of these workers, especially when we talk about quiet quitting, right? Or there's other trends you've talked to me about, like bare minimum Mondays and act your wage. I love
Yeah.
this. Employees are kind of tapped out, right? And they're trying to figure out how to deal with their personal lives without spending all of their energy on work. Why don't people move on when they feel that way? All we hear about is that there's all these job openings and all these jobs need to be filled, but yet people are sort of staying in jobs that they're not happy in.
Yeah, so TikTok has given us three terms that may be describing what is happening with these workers that are unhappy, but they are still there. The first one is job cuffing. So these are workers that have decided to stay in a job they don't love just for the time being. So it's good enough for now. So right now, maybe they're staying for, end of the year bonuses, or just, they want to spend the holiday, just they don't want to be trying to switch into a new job before the holidays. But they're prioritizing stability over happiness. But, make no mistake, these are disengaged workers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The second one is a new trend called resenteeism. It's kind of a play on absenteeism. So they're people, they're there, but they're resentful because they don't feel like they can leave. These are usually for financial reasons. They don't want to stay, but financially they just can't afford to leave. They don't feel like they have any option to go. So they're mentally, they're emotionally checked out.
Yeah, they're not going to be happy. And who are these loud laborers?
Yeah, and these could be some of the people experiencing that resenteeism, but loud laborers is another TikTok trend of people who are spending more time complaining about work than actually doing it. And the problem with that, on top of just having, of course, a worker who is disengaged, is these are your toxic employees. They're affecting morale in the workplace. We see it all the time. Engagement issues are contagious.
And it's really going to bring down productivity, right? Not only engagement and people feeling resentful and not wanting to be at work and looking for other jobs, but just the work's not going to get done.
Yeah, all these trends are affecting productivity. When you have disengaged workers, they're not as productive.
Okay, so Brooke, gathering all of your expertise in employee relations and being an employment lawyer and being an amazing investigator, what should employers do? Like, how do you deal with job cuffing and all of these other things? What do we do to create an environment where people are feeling more comfortable and try not to let this, these developments on TikTok and elsewhere really infect the workplace?
Absolutely. Well, and I think this is, something I hear you say on the podcast all the time is you have to have conversations with your employees. You have to talk to them. Managers have to manage, and manage means talking to your people. So really, you need to go deeper. What is driving in your workplace this lack of engagement? I mean, obviously, these workers have some kind of unmet needs. So talk to them, find out what those unmet needs are. You got to check in and then, really listen and learn and start coming up with some solutions that make sense for your workplace. As there might be opportunities out there that are really easy that you just hadn't thought of because you didn't ask. There could be opportunities for learning or development, for mentorships, for maybe people need either more or less challenging projects. Maybe there's some job sharing opportunities, or and just a new tool that they piece of equipment that an employee needs that could just make their job easier and make them happier.
Okay, that all makes sense. Can we do anything about this work-life balance, this work-life integration?
But again, you got to talk to your people and figure out what are those needs. What is it that in terms of their work-life integration that they need that would help them? And are there ways you can be more flexible? Are there ways you can be more flexible with their return from home or return to work versus work from home days, with their where they work, when they work, scheduling, and really think about, from an employer's perspective, it's about how do we get the work done? So can you be more flexible if you're really thinking about just outcomes versus hours logged and when and where that happens?
Those are all great ideas. The other thing I was just thinking about is HR. I mean, most of the people who listen to the podcast are either business owners or HR professionals or employment lawyers. Folks in HR have really got to take this on as a commitment, right? I guess what I'm sitting here thinking is, just because we're talking about these issues doesn't mean they're suddenly going to be resolved. There has to be some pretty affirmative efforts by the employer to, like you said, talk to the employees, identify what the potential issues are. How can we be flexible? Where can we be flexible? And I think try to create some social opportunities outside of TikTok, right? Outside of social media, because I feel like that's what's happening is people are connecting and collaborating on social media and not doing it with their coworkers.
Oh, absolutely. Some of these viral TikTok trends, these are people just trying to connect with other people, and who that sense of we're all gonna come together and share these concerns and share my gripes and have people sort of affirm how I'm feeling. And so if you can create opportunities at work for people to connect, so they're connecting, together at work instead of on TikTok, hopefully that will help create, some sense of, again, that's also part of talking to people. What are those social opportunities that they're looking for? But, you also have to make it, people want to come into the office.
Right. Well, we have a lawyer who Brooke and I love, and she picked her in-office day on Wednesdays because that's the day we all order lunch and sit together and chat. And I love that. I mean, great. Mm-hmm. Come in so that we can talk and we can make sure that we get to check in. And Trish works part-time, so she's not here all the time anyway. But we know we can count on her on Wednesdays, and I look forward to it. I'm always happy that she's here. Well, Brooke, you have given us so many good ideas, and you've educated me. I feel like a dinosaur on some of these things when it comes to TikTok and social media. Thank you so much for spending the time today.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone, thank you for joining us. It is such a privilege to have you with us on these podcasts. We are always open to your ideas and your thoughts and your perspectives. So go out, have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Workplace Wake Up, including our guests and hosts, do not provide legal advice in this podcast. Do not act upon any of the information discussed in this podcast without first consulting a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to spread the word, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and/or rate and review it. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and email us at info@shawlawgroup.com.